of Yesh Miyayin, that the Ayin Eloki is Mahava as Hayesh. So this is what we touched upon last time. We first started with this. What does the Nefesh HaTivis? What does the Nefesh HaTivis understand and know and about this whole principle that Ayin Eloki is Mehavas Hayesh? You would think that the Nefesh HaBahamis, the Nefesh HaTivis, is altogether not interested in the Elokus. And it's only interested in Gashmis. But again, because that the Nefesh HaTivis was also given Seichel, and Seichel, as we pointed out, has that capacity to relate to things, to see things that you can't touch, you can just understand logically, even if you can't even begin to imagine what it is, what it's like. This is the Seichel. I've explained many times that Seichel is the ruchnische form of sight, of seeing. In sight also, we see things and we are very clear about them, we are certain about them, and yet without ever coming in contact with them, which is an amazing thing. To be so certain about something without ever coming in contact with it. The truth is that one is dependent on the other. The fact that the person has seichel, this is why he has that quality in sight.
So that's quality.
I'm sorry? What quality? Because animals also see. But it's a big difference between the experience of sight that a person has and that of an animal. The animal, as we discussed many times, when the animal sees something, it does not see it as an independent entity, something which is true unto itself. He sees it only from its own perspective. Something is there, it blocks his line of vision, and he is right away, is this something dangerous, or it's something edible, or it's dangerous, or whatever it is. So he thinks things from that perspective. Do I like it or do I hate it? To see things, so to speak, objectively, neutrally, just to see what is this thing, nothing to do with me, just what is this thing for itself, that the animal does not have at all that capacity. A human being is the only one who has that. And by human being, this is the most important thing, and that this is what brings the world to him as a reality. This is why the world is so real to him. We pointed out that a person has a shalom who lacks, who does not have sight. So it says that he doesn't have sight, he doesn't have Yetzer Hara. Yetzer Hara doesn't bother him. Why? But he can touch it. Because to a human being, in order to be drawn to it, to have an interest in it, it has to be real. And if it is not real, even if it tastes good, he doesn't have that type of an interest. This is why Shabbos night, we mentioned many times, Friday, we have to benchlich, to have light on the table, because a person cannot enjoy food unless he sees it. That's when food becomes real. Even though food is something you enjoy by taste. Okay, so seichel is this very special gift that a human being has, and that is what distinguishes the human nefesh habahamis from the animal. The animal doesn't have seichel. No matter how smart the animal is, it's not seichel. A human being, a human's...
So whatever they think about, or whatever they're able to do, so where's that called?
What I explained, they can know things only from their own, from how it affects them.
Yeah, but I'm just curious, like, what is that thing called by them? I mean, so what is that? So what do you define that as? I mean, so
It's an emotional attitude, reaction. Seichel is in the brain, which means it is neutral, it's not personal, it's just knowing the union. This is an emotional. Animal is all emotion. The word kelev. The word kelev is a derivative of two words. Kulei lev.
Which word is that? Which word do you use like?
Kulei lev.
this is the color.
It's entirely lev. All right. So therefore, since it has seichel, therefore it has access. It has a means the seichel brings it to recognize that there is the inyan, that there is Ayin Elokei that creates the world. And I'd like to discuss this a little bit. Ayin Elokei, what's meant Ayin Elokei? What does it know about the Lakus? Doesn't know anything about Lakus. It knows about the world. Now, it's to know a Lakus independently of the world that the Nefesh Habahamis doesn't reach into. As we're going to see later. Huh?
So the Nefesh Habahamis itself does not see what? The Nefesh Habahamis itself does not see what?
Does not see a Lakus independently of the world.
So what does it see independently?
The world. So the world, in Nefesh Habahamis recognizes that it's a real Metzius. And that it is able to do because it has seichel. It's a real Metzius. It's not just like a behemoth that sees things only from its own experience. But it sees it's a real thing. And as such, it has right away a question. It has a question. Where is this Metzius coming from?
What has that question?
The seichel of Nefesh Habahamis.
When it sees something.
The whole world, the whole Metzius of the world, it's something that is a valid, it is a question that forms in the Nefesh Habahamis, in the Nefesh Habahamis, in the seichel of Nefesh Habahamis. Where is everything coming from? What is this from? Where is it coming from? That question is within, so to speak, the seichel ability of the Nefesh Habahamis. Because this is what the seichel of Nefesh Habahamis is. And in that extent of seichel he has, that When he sees something, he knows there is a cause, there's something that made it happen. And when he sees the world, he sees the world. He sees right away, something must have made it happen. The world didn't make itself. That much seichel he has. And what is the response, what is the answer to this question? Who made it? And here's where the Inyan Elokus comes in. Rabbi Shabbamis doesn't know Elokus per se. But he knows that if there is a world, and the world has to have been made, then therefore there has to be something that comes before the world, that precedes the world, that did not need to be made. Does that make sense? If there is anything, and anything that I can see has to have a source, has to have been made, therefore it comes to the conclusion, recognizes, where does this come from? It comes from some place that I don't understand, that it didn't need to be made. It was there before. It was there always. This is called ayin. Why is it called ayin? Because yesh has to have been made. Anything that's yesh has to be made. Only ayin doesn't need to be made. And therefore the Nefesh HaBahamis realizes this very simple train of thought, okay, that the world was created by the Ayin Holiki. I'd like to know that this is clear, right?
I'm wondering how the Nefesh HaBahamis relates to the meaning of ayin.
It doesn't. It's hard for him. That's to say. He doesn't. He has a very difficult understanding of what's ayin. He can't. But it is ayin in the sense that, you know, it's not world. It's not yes. It didn't get created. It's an eliki. It's a true presence before the world. That it can see that such a thing exists, and that it knows that this is where the world comes from ayin.
So what doesn't he understand?
He doesn't understand what ayin is, what Elokus is, as we're going to see it further. But what he understands is that the world I want to go back a line before. That line which we already learned. Eich. You have that? Eich sheho ayin Rabbi mahaves hayesh. The understanding that Nefesh HaBahamis has in his havas yesh me'ayin, the principle, how the ayin olaki brings out the yesh. This understanding by the Nefesh HaBahamis is hu'arehu mi'at mize'er ma'oid. It is very little. What the Nefesh Hatimis on its own can possibly understand in this area, in this arena, in this question of Ayin Eliki creating the world. He cannot understand that. He understands a little bit. Once he understands, one thing it knows that this is what happened. This is what the yesh comes from the Ayin Eliki that creates it. Because the yesh didn't make itself, and there had to be something that is Ayin that made it. That it knows, that it understands. How does yesh come from Ayin and this whole thing? It understands very little. Not mizeir. Mizeir. And then there's another element in yesh me'ayin. The Alter Rebbe explains in Tanya that since that the world is created yesh me'ayin, that therefore it means that the world, in order to exist, must be continually created. Because it doesn't have its own basis for existence. Its existence is only due to the fact that the Ayin Eliki creates it. So therefore, it is constantly dependent on this Ayin Eliki to be in this Yesh. And this is what maintains the presence of the Yesh. If one understands that, the Alter Rebbe goes a step further. Since that the Yesh is constantly, continually dependent on the Ayin to be created, that means that the Yesh is really not a real Metzius, even while it exists.
Why is it constantly dependent?
Huh?
Why is it constantly dependent to be brought into existence?
Because it doesn't have its own basis for existence. Right? The whole basis for its existence is the fact that the Ayin creates it. So therefore it's constantly dependent, and therefore on its own, it doesn't have a real presence. And therefore, its whole mitzvah is that the Ayin creates it, not its own presence. And it is therefore, as the Alter Rebbe says, the bottle to the Ayin. That in the real terms, what we are looking for at is not on the Yesh, nor the Koyach Ayin, Koyach Eliki that creates it. Except that our flesh eyes are not able to see beyond the physical presentation. But the physical is only a presentation. It's not the reality. The reality that the koyach that maintains the yesh is as a koyach eliki, koyach ayin. This is right there in Tanya.
Yeah.
This is not different than, it's not different, it's actually greater than, but certainly on the level of when you have the neshama and the goof. Everybody understands that the neshama is what gives life to the goof. And when a person moves his hand, it's not the goof that the hand moves, the koyach ha-goof, the koyach ha-neshama that's in the goof. But you don't see the neshama, you don't see the koyach. But without that koyach, you won't be able to move or do anything. And it's constantly there, maintaining it. Okay. So, to understand these other aspects of Yesh Me'ayin, how the Yesh is therefore totally dependent on the Ayin, and how the Yesh is therefore bottled to the Ayin. Okay, and if we go a step further, we will realize where the Nefesh HaTivis will completely collapse. Because the next step is that since the Yesh is bottled to the Ayin, therefore the main thing is the Ayin. The main thing the dedication should be to do that which the Ayin wants you to do, not what the Yesh wants to do. Nefesh HaTivis cannot relate to that. Right? Okay, it's fine, it's the Yesh Me'ayin, but still I need a good supper. That's a very important part of my life, right?
So the Ayin wants.
Huh?
The Ayin wants it to have a good supper, so you can serve him.
Okay. So therefore, this with the Nefesh HaTivis understands the Inyan from Yesh Me'ayin, the Ayin Eliki is creating the Yesh. It understands very little of it. Ve'al gam zois, and this is an important additional point, that even that which it does understand, bo eslo be'hakshoma ma'oid. The Nefesh HaBahamis understands it, bo eslo, it comes down to it in its seichel, It is formed in a very magushandik way, in a very coarse and tangible and physical way. Does not understand, it cannot relate to the godly element in this. It's made by Shoma Moed, for instance. God creates the world. How can God create so many things? If He creates this and creates this, He'd be very busy creating things. This is the Nefesh HaBaim is perplexed. Because if you create something, you have to be involved in it. How does that create? But that creates not only this and that. Really, if you come to think of it, it creates millions of stars. And each star has a name. And God maintains in His memory the names of each one of these stars. What a powerful computer, right? These are natural thinking process for the Nefesh HaTivus. You cannot think in terms of, oh, this is a different realm. It doesn't have these qualities whatsoever. You know, God creates Yesh Me'ayin. It's a completely different thing. Like the Rambam describes, how Hashem knows and all that. This is totally out of our realm. We just have to know the truth, the principal truth, that Hashem knows absolutely everything that occurs and that takes place in the world. If there's a little worm crawling around someplace in the deeps of the ground, of the earth, Hashem is totally aware of it.
We're not only aware of it, He makes the worm crawl up that particular path every second, too.
So this is something which the Nefesh HaTivus is constantly perplexed by it. Why? Because he thinks in Magushandik ways. Okay, so this is, we go further. And then certainly, his house. When you go to the Inyanim of Elokus, his house, the Inyan Elokus as Elokus is in truth as unto itself. That is completely above creation. L'maylam his house, not as Elokus is known through the fact that He creates the world, but l'maylam his house. Shelo itaskil v'itasi klau. The Nefesh HaTivus will not have an inkling of it, will not have a sense of it and an insight. Lo itasik, it will not comprehend it at all. There's an expression, I don't remember where it is, in one of the Kabbalah Sforim, I think in its HAYOIM, History Arizal, I'm not mistaken. It says, Lo yizehu yikir ho'elokus shuhu mehave oilamis. That the ikir of Elokus is not He creates worlds. That does not define what Elokus is. This is a dover chitzoni shebechitzonis. This is not the inner Elokus. Like the Gemara says, the Alter Rebbe explains in Tanya that Mokim she'atomoitze gdulosi shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, shom atomoitze an bosal nusay. Everybody knows what I'm saying? Mokim in a place, I would say in a situation. So atomoitze gdulosi, when you notice the greatness of the nation, shom, just there, atomoitze an bosal nusay. This is where you see His anova and His humility, His humbleness. that the Rebbe descended in, and the Rebbe creates the world, that is such an enormous descent for the Rebbe. That's not a greatness. On the contrary, this is a tremendous to say that in order to create the world, he had to be metzamtzin. He had to conceal himself. Retract all of his real truth self in order to allow the world to be.
Isn't that even greater?
What?
Isn't that even greater? Because he had to do that?
What do you mean is that great? And creation is not defining the greatness of the Medrash.
Right, but the fact that he did that, it's two different things.
So the Nefesh HaBahamis has no access, cannot relate at all to a Lakus per se, as a Lakus is in its true, in some element of truth. Do you know Lakus? The Gemara says, the Medrashim say, and RASHAB brings it down, that why did Rebbe create the world? Rebbe created the world because of Torah and because of Israel. So Torah and Israel, these are the two godly koiches, godly elements that created the whole world. Can the Nefesh HaBahamis understand that?
Creating the world?
Mm-hmm.
As there is the purpose.
It's the same thing. That's the source of that koyah that created the world. It's even higher. This is the source of that koyah. So now I understand. So Nefesh HaBahamis understand that the world was created without any effort, like the Gemara says, that the world was created without any effort, without any tircha. That he cannot understand. But he knows that Rebbe created the world. That much he knows. But it's in a very small degree. All this is to point out the difference between the Seichel of Nefesh HaPivis and the Seichel of Nefesh Ho'elakis. Okay? Now we go weiter. Avol ha-Seichel de Nefesh Ho'elakis. But then the Seichel de Nefesh Ho'elakis, hu ha-hepech mizeh legamri, is the exact opposite of that limit, of that status, of that reality of the Nefesh HaBahamis. Shetaskil, in what way is it different? It is different in the fact that Shetaskil b'chol dover, that in everything it will understand and will engage bebechinas haruchnius sheba, in the ruchnius aspect of that particular thing. B'chol dover, anything that the Nefesh Ho'elakis comes in contact with, everything that the Nefesh Ho'elakis considers immediately its ruchnius element, not its gashmius.
What's Sheba like?
Huh?
Sheba?
Haruchnius sheba, the ruchnius in that thing. B'chol dover is haruchnius sheba. Okay. This principle we already discussed way back when we talked about Ruach HaOdom and Ruach HaBhema. The Nefesh Ho'elakis, everything that exists, it immediately identifies the ruchnius of that. What's a table? The Nefesh HaBahamis, the table is a board on two legs. Then you ask a question, okay, who would ever make a board on two legs? Oh, it has a function, has a usage. But what is a table? A board on two legs. The Nefesh Elokis does not define a table as a board on two legs. It sees right away a ruchni sekir and a godly in it. And we discussed many times, I don't want to repeat it. Vehi bevchinas ayin ho'eleki. The understanding of the Nefesh Elokis is in the ruchnis of everything, and that is b'vchinas ayin ho'eleki. It is in the ayin ho'eleki hamhave kol bria. The Nefesh Elokis is not even interested in the bria itself that was created. It is interested, and it immediately latches on, so to speak, and wants to understand the ayin ho'eleki that creates it. What is the godly element in this? Ayin ho'eleki hamhave kol bria ubria leyesh u'metzias dover. Okay, let's finish the next two. B'tivoi umahus. The Ayin ho'eleki that creates everything, and makes everything, makes every bria a metzias u'metzias dover. The Rambam explains how did it happen that people, human beings, just a few generations after the creation of the world, actually when Adam Rishon was still alive, people began to turn to Avodah Zarah. I began to turn to Avodah Zarah. So he says, because people looked around and they saw the sun and the moon and the stars, as for example. They saw how these creatures, these huge heavenly creatures, so to speak, have such an enormous effect on the world. The sun, obviously, is completely the source of life for everything. It makes things grow. It makes and everything. It gives the ability to live. The moon has its effect. The stars have their effect. The rain and the seasons and all that. So when they saw this, and they see this coming from this big fire, ball of fire, the sun, they decided that this ball of fire is doing it by choice, because it's such a huge ball of fire. To think that this huge ball of fire that can illuminate the entire world is nothing but a servant of the Creator, couldn't think of it. Such a mitzvah. What's the pshat that mitzvah? Nefesh HaTivah is from the worldly perspective. When you look at something, the first thing you see its mitzvah, it's Gashmizik mitzvah. and you become affected by it. Therefore, Sholakis sees things exact opposite. Sees only the ruchnis and the godliness in it. So when you see the sun rise up in the morning, what does the Nefesh Sholakis see? He sees how Hashem brings the sun up. That's how the sun rises up. Hashem brings the sun up. So therefore, when he sees that Hashem brings the sun up, what does that mean in terms of the effect of that daytime? That means that Hashem makes day. That's why He brings up the sun. It's not the sun comes up and therefore there is day. Hashem makes day, and by bringing the sun up. So the Nefesh Elokis looks at everything from a Ruchnistic perspective. There is a letter from REBBE. The REBBE wrote many years ago, like in the early years. There was a question about which rotates around what. When the sun rotates around the earth, or the earth rotates around the sun. So, the perspective of the world, the scientists and the perspective of the physical world it's very simple. They say, look, the sun is much, much, much larger than the earth. Like millions of times the size of the earth. So therefore, what rotates around what? The small thing rotates around the big thing. The earth is a speck in comparison to the sun. Therefore, the earth rotates around the sun. This is how you see it in Nefesh HaTivus. Then comes the Nefesh Elokis, the Torah, and says, wait a second. It's not a question of who is larger physically and who is smaller. The question is, where is the godliness represented? What is significance of the sun? And what is significance of the earth? The earth has human beings. The earth has Torah and mitzvahs. Does the sun compare to the earth? The whole phenomenon, the whole thing of the sun is to serve the earth. The earth is the master, not the sun, even though it's small. This is a completely reverse view. And till this day, you have a difficulty to relate, to think of it. No, the earth is so small. The sun is the master. So this is what he says. Nefesh Elokis immediately, in everything, detects and looks for the Ruch Nishba, and it is engaged in the Ayin Eloki that creates everything and brings everything yes yesh umetzios dover betivoy umehus. The Ayin Eloki. See, this is another important point that Rebbe makes over here, and I'd like to discuss this a little bit. That the Ayin Eloki creates each creature, everything. I think it's a little too warm at this point, don't you think? I could tell my audience. The Ayin Olaki creates every creature. Now there is another important error that it works itself in the Seichel and Nefesh HaBahamis. And that's what happened in the world. The Rebbe created the world. How is this whole phenomenon of so many different creatures, and on top of it there's the human being? How did this occur? So the way the world looks at it is like this: that the Rebbe, even if you agree and recognize that the Rebbe created the world, the Rebbe only created, so to speak, the starting point. But the development of every creature, like a human being, let's take a human being. A human being, we say he has seichel, and he does things up his seichel. Right? He does things up his seichel. Now this thing that he does things up his seichel, is this something which is contained inherently in the human being? Or is this something that he learns as he goes on in life? You understand the question?
I'm just repeat it.
Huh?
If you don't mind to repeat it.
I can't hear.
I hope you don't mind to repeat it.
No, I don't mind repeating it. A human being is born as a little child. This child knows nothing. An infant doesn't know anything. And then he grows, and his parents and his teachers help him along to grow. And as a result of that process that he's shown and he's taught and so forth, he grows into a human being, into a fine human being. Now, when you look at the final product, so to speak, this fine human being behaves nicely, and he's all capable. His seichel works, his heart works. He's able to elaborate and explain things. He's got all these koiches developed. These koiches, these capabilities. Are these capabilities something that came to him as a result of training? Or is this something that was given to him by the Ayin Olaki that created him?
Well, Ayin, I guess made it essential, and
Right.
then he, through his training, so he's
To develop. That's exactly right. But this is the Seichel Nefesh Olakis that understands it that way. Because the Nefesh HaBahamis has a different, he does not see it this way.
he just sees it as the person himself. No.
He sees that the person is the result of the training. And that's it. And it goes to such an extent that they actually believe that a person is an advanced monkey. A monkey that was very well trained as the human being. And it makes sense to them. Because they have the mind of a payment.
The body too, probably.
Well, I don't know about the body, but they have the mind of a baby. So this is what the Rebbe says not just to counter this, but you have to understand. The Nefesh Elikis understands and goes right into the essence, into the ruchnis of everything, which is the Ayin Eliki. Follow this line. I'm repeating again, and I want to point to what we discussed. Ayin Eliki, the third line from the bottom. Ayin Eliki hamahava kol brio brio, that creates every creature, leyesh umetzius dover, into a real presence, a yesh, betivoy umahusoy, along with its nature, along with its quality. What gives a human being his nature? What gives a human being its quality, human quality? This is the Ayin Eliki that created it. It's not the training. And when a person acts differently than a human being is supposed to act, we don't say, oh, he was trained wrong. He's saying he's not acting like a human being. He's not acting like himself. Because he was made into a human being, and he has definitely the capacity to act appropriately. But that he doesn't, he's unfortunate.
Yeah, like, let's say...
Just one second. Remember your question. And one thing to demonstrate, to illustrate this tangibly that we recognize this in him, is that if we see a person who is completely let down, without any personal self-respect, either he is lying in the gutter drunk, or he doesn't have, he doesn't act in a manner that a human being of self-respect, we have Rachmanas on him. Why do we have Rachmanas on him? I mean, this is how he is. The reason we have Rachmanas on him is because he is not the way he is. This is a human being who did not have a chance to live like a human being. It's a very painful thing. Because the Indian that he's a human being was something which was created, was part of his creation. The REBBE created him, Ayin Elikim, b'mehuvativei umahus. And if he acts differently, then he is not acting according to the real Teva Mahus. And when a person acts according to his real Teva Mahus, it is due to the fact that he recognizes, not because of a training. Training only helps him to know how to do it. But he feels comfortable with it because he recognizes how that is really his Teva Mahus, and how that relates him to the Ayin Eliki that created him. Yes, what's your question?
No, let's say a person is, unfortunately, he was born with like some mental problems. Or something.
I'm sorry?
Let's say someone was born with like mental problems. Right?
Born with
mental problems, he can't...
Oh, that's something else, yeah.
So, I mean, so you're... Okay, fine, so you're also going to have reforms for... so you're also going to have reforms for him. But you're also going to have reforms for him, but...
No, it's not the same thing.
Right.
It's not the same thing. Yeah, it's a painful thing to see. It's a big Rachmanas on his parents. I mean, the Gemara says, an interesting thing the Gemara says. Shoita the Gemara says, Osur l'rachim olav.
Also what?
Osur l'rachim olav. Clearly, the Inyan Osur l'rachim olav does not mean that you're not allowed to help him. Osur l'rachim olav means that Rachmanas is not a suited way of relating to him, because he is not sensitive to what he is missing. Achmonis is when a person is sensitive, and deep down he's in pain. When we see a person who is drunk and is lying in the gutter, and totally disregarding his life, we know that internally he is very in great pain. Even though he says, I'm very happy, leave me alone.
And also, like, another thing, fine, so you said that, like, on the whole thing of, like, where a person gets his, like, ability to act like a human being comes from the Ayin. So, yeah, but, like, let's say if you won't get trained that way. I mean, so let's say if you won't ever learn how to be a human being. Or,
So what happens?
He's still a human being, but
He is in pain. And he continues to look and look and look. Sometimes it looks a whole lifetime.
Like, sees what he does.
I'm sorry?
Never mind.
This is the tragedy of the time. Like, we have in the soil, we have Jewish boys who grew up in the kibbutzim, and then they completely empty spiritually. So as soon as they're able to leave the country, after the service, they go out and start looking for, finding themselves. It's a painful thing. There is another important notch, so to speak, in this statement here. That the Ayin Elokei creates every Bria, Yesh HaMetzias von Ayin, and Metzias Dover B'tivui u'Mehusay. That is a very fine thing, and I'd like to try and convey it here. And this is where we see exactly that this we're talking about Nefesh Elokis. Remember yesterday, we explained the difference between Gneva as it is in the Torah, and Gneva as it is understood in the world. In the world, every object is hefker. It belongs to no one. So when a person acquires an object, what happens is that, in essence, the object belongs to no one, because that's the essential reality of the world. It belongs to the world, and the world belongs to no one, so therefore the object belongs to no one. The fact that this person acquired it, so that is, so to speak, a human element. People agreed that you can own your thing and I can own my thing, so that we don't interfere with each other. But that's only on the human level, on the functioning level. Functioning, you understand what functioning means? On the practical level. Yeah? It's not on a fundamental level. Fundamental remains always the same. It belongs to no one. Doesn't change the object. So therefore we say, lo signoiv, on that level, it is a conventional thing. The conventional means it's an agreed upon thing among human beings. I don't steal yours, you don't steal mine. There is nothing fundamentally wrong with stealing, because it belongs to the world.
So what happened to the jail?
To protect the civilization, to be able to live together. That's all. It's an agreed upon thing.
From addition, who did a human being belong to himself?
So now, please. So now, then there is the signet the way it is in the Torah. It's a completely different thing. The principle says, Adiba says, Aloich Hashem Alekecha. And then it says, Lo Signev. What does this tell us? That the world is not hefker. The world really belongs to its maker, to its creator. And if you own something, you own it by the grace of the creator. You don't own it because you grabbed it from nowhere, because the creator gave it, the world, to the human beings, to people. So you own it because the Rebbe said that I'm giving the world to people. Therefore, when you own it, you actually own it by Hashem's gift. It's a real ownership. Hashem substantiates your ownership. And therefore, when you say Lo Signoiv, that has a real godly power. So it's Lo Signoiv. The Rebbe should establish these ownership principles, because the world is his, and he gave it to human beings. And therefore, if you disobey these laws, you're disregarding the truth of the world. Okay, that's how we discuss. That means that in real truth, the way a Nefesh Elokis relates to everything in the world is that everything in the world represents the fact that it belongs to the neighbors. That's primary. And secondary, it belongs to human being. It belongs to human being because Hashem gave it to him. But primarily it belongs to neighbors. This is true regarding ownership. This is true regarding everything else. Health. What makes a person healthy? Health is essentially that he acts in accordance to the way the Rebbe wants him to act. And the Rebbe set up the teva to act. What's beauty? Beauty is that which brings out the grace, the grace of the creation of the Rebbe made. The godly quality, that's beauty. So that everything continues to represent its origin, even though it comes into the world and it becomes human consumption and so forth. This is what he says over here. The Nefesh Elokis looks at things like this. The ayin hu eliki hamhavek o brio liyeshu mitzius dover b'tiva yomahusay. When it has its tava and its mahus continues to relate to the ayin hu eliki. What does this tava represent? It represents how the ayin hu eliki expresses itself in this tava. Why are there so many different people? Do you understand what's going on? There are billions of people. Today they say there are 6 billion people. And ain't they the same shobis? No two people think alike. No two leaves of the same tree looked exactly identical. And we can go on and on and on and on. Where is this infinity coming from? Why is the world has this kind of infinity? Because it is representing the ayin that creates it. It's not a worldly thing. It is the ayin eliki that is in the world. And that's infinite. It boggles the mind.
As far as I make it, that like every single thing is different. I'm saying, like no two leaves are the same.
Everything, every leaf is individually created. That's what it means different. If there are 2 leaves, each leaf has to represent another aspect. That's why even there were two leaves created. That's why they look different. Huh?
Because if it was exactly the same, so what's the point?
I'm sorry?
If they were exactly the same, so what's the point of one of them?
That's right. That's exactly right. So what does that show you? That's right, exactly right. If it was just a natural thing, why should it be different? No, they're not natural. They're representing a koyach halaki. And that's why they're all different. And this is what the Nefesh Elokis recognizes. This is what the Nefesh Elokis is looking for. Oh, there's a natural world, boo, 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 boo. No, I need something more substantial, more real, more ruchness, more meaningful. This is the end of our meal today.
Thank you.
Wait.